Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, January 26th, and we are tracking a dangerous and rapidly evolving extreme cold emergency unfolding across multiple regions of Canada this morning. Environment Canada continues to issue high-impact extreme cold warnings, and the conditions we're seeing right now are not just uncomfortable, they are life-threatening. In several regions, wind chill values are plunging into ranges where frostbite can occur in just minutes on exposed skin, making this one of the most severe Arctic outbreaks of the season so far. This is not a localized event. This is a large-scale Arctic air mass that has settled over central and northern Canada and shows very little sign of moving quickly. 6 major regions are currently under high-impact warnings, stretching from the prairies through northern Ontario, into northern Quebec, and all the way to western Labrador. What makes this situation especially serious is the combination of intensity and duration. In some areas, these extreme conditions are expected to persist for days, not hours. Before we break this down region by region, here's the most important takeaway right now. If you are in any of these warning zones, time outdoors should be kept to an absolute minimum. At wind chill values below -40, frostbite can develop faster than most people realize, and even short exposure can be dangerous. This is the kind of cold that leaves little room for error. If you live in any part of central or northern Canada, or if you have family in these regions, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss critical updates as this situation evolves. And let me know in the comments which region are you watching right now, and how cold is it where you are. I'll be keeping an eye on your reports as we move through the day. Now, let's start with what's happening across the prairies, where some of the most extreme conditions are being observed. Saskatchewan is currently sitting near the core of this Arctic outbreak. Bitterly cold air flowing straight south from the Arctic is sweeping across the province with very little resistance, and that's pushing wind chill values into extremely dangerous territory. In multiple locations, wind chills are dropping deep into the -40s, with some areas approaching or exceeding the -50 mark. What's important to understand here is that the actual air temperature doesn't tell the full story. Strong Arctic winds are stripping heat away from exposed skin at an alarming rate, creating conditions where frostbite can develop in as little as 2 to 5 minutes. This places Saskatchewan firmly in the highest risk category for cold-related injuries today. While there are early signs that slightly milder air may begin to edge in later, this remains a multi-day cold event, and conditions will not improve quickly. Just east of there, Manitoba is dealing with a very similar situation. Wind chills across much of the province are sitting at levels that are both rare and dangerous, especially for late January. Even during the warmest part of the day, conditions remain cold enough to pose serious risks. Overnight and early morning periods are particularly hazardous, when wind chills plunge to their lowest levels. Northern communities in Manitoba face additional challenges due to isolation and limited access to services during extreme weather events. Travel becomes more dangerous, mechanical failures are more likely, and emergency response times can increase. This is why preparedness is so critical during events like this, not just for travelers, but for anyone who may lose power or heat. As we move eastward into northern Ontario, the extreme cold continues with very little relief. High-impact warnings cover large stretches of the region, where wind chill values remain firmly in the -30s and 40s. Unlike southern areas that may see some daytime moderation, northern Ontario is expected to see persistent cold throughout the day, with limited improvement until later in the week. What makes northern Ontario particularly vulnerable during Arctic outbreaks is the vast distance between communities and the long stretches of highway connecting them. In extreme cold, even a minor vehicle issue can quickly escalate into a serious emergency. This is why authorities continue to stress the importance of emergency kits, charged phones, and letting someone know your travel plans if you must be on the road. Further east, northern Quebec is now feeling the full force of this Arctic air mass as it continues its progression. Wind chills here are dropping into the -40s, with the cold expected to intensify before it begins to ease. Many of the affected areas are remote, and access can be limited even under normal conditions. During extreme cold events, everyday tasks become far more dangerous, and preparation becomes essential. This same Arctic air continues its march toward western Labrador, where some of the longest-lasting warnings are now in effect. This region is expected to experience prolonged extreme cold, with dangerous wind chills persisting through multiple day-night cycles. Extended exposure at these temperatures is not just uncomfortable, it can be deadly without proper protection. The reason this outbreak is so widespread and persistent comes down to the larger atmospheric pattern. A deep dip in the polar circulation has allowed Arctic air to spill far south, locking much of central and northern Canada into a prolonged deep freeze. With no strong systems to disrupt this pattern immediately, cold air remains entrenched and recovery will be slow. As we move through today, conditions across all 6 warning regions remain dangerous. Even where temperatures moderate slightly during daylight hours, wind chills will stay low enough to pose a serious risk. This is not a situation where a brief warm-up makes conditions safe. Caution remains necessary at all times. There is still much more to cover, including how long these warnings are expected to last, when relief may arrive for each region, and what the most important safety actions are as this Arctic outbreak continues. As we look ahead over the next few days, one of the most critical questions is how long this extreme cold is going to last, and the answer depends heavily on where you are. While some regions may begin to see gradual improvement sooner than others, this is not a quick reset back to normal winter conditions. This Arctic outbreak has momentum, and in several areas, the cold is expected to remain dangerous for an extended period. For the prairie provinces, including Saskatchewan and Manitoba, there are early signs that the absolute worst wind chill values may begin to ease slightly as we move through the next day. However, it's important to understand what improvement actually means in this context. Even as wind chills moderate from the most extreme levels, conditions will still remain cold enough to pose a risk with prolonged exposure. Frostbite risk may extend from minutes to longer intervals, but that does not mean the danger disappears. In northern Ontario, the timeline is slower. Cold air remains firmly established, and daytime temperatures will struggle to provide meaningful relief. Wind chill values are expected to remain well below safe thresholds, particularly during overnight and early morning hours. Any improvement here will be gradual, and residents should prepare for several more days of harsh winter conditions. Northern Quebec follows a similar pattern, though with a slight delay. As the Arctic air mass continues eastward, some areas will see peak intensity before they see any moderation. This staggered progression means that while one region begins to recover, another is just entering the most dangerous phase of the outbreak. It's a reminder that this is a moving system, not a single static event. Western Labrador stands out as one of the most concerning areas in this situation. Forecast guidance continues to indicate that extreme cold warnings here will persist longer than anywhere else in the country. The atmospheric pattern responsible for this outbreak is particularly effective at keeping Arctic air locked in place over this region. Until that pattern breaks down, conditions will remain dangerously cold, especially during overnight hours. One of the reasons this event is drawing so much attention is because it is a textbook Arctic outbreak. Cold air is being funneled southward with very little interference, sustained by a persistent flow pattern that prevents warmer air from moving in. Without a significant shift in the larger atmospheric setup, cold air simply has nowhere to go. This is why warnings are being extended and why authorities continue to emphasize caution. Now let's talk about what this means in practical terms for daily life. Extreme cold at this level affects far more than just comfort. Vehicles are more likely to fail, batteries lose charge faster, fuel congel, and mechanical issues become more common. Infrastructure is under stress, and even minor problems can escalate quickly when temperatures are this low. For people who must work outdoors, conditions like these require serious precautions. Employers in affected regions are already adjusting schedules, shortening shifts, and increasing the frequency of warm-up breaks. Exposed skin must be fully covered, and wind protection becomes just as important as insulation. These are not conditions where shortcuts are safe. Travel also carries elevated risk. In extreme cold, a simple breakdown can turn into a life-threatening situation if help is delayed. That's why emergency kits are essential. Blankets, food, water, a flashlight, and a fully charged phone can make the difference between an inconvenience and a serious emergency. Letting someone know your route and expected arrival time adds an extra layer of safety. At the household level, preparation is equally important. Power outages are more dangerous during extreme cold, and having backup lighting, extra blankets, and alternative heat sources can be critical. Keeping electronics charged and minimizing unnecessary power usage can help reduce strain on systems already under pressure. There's also a strong community aspect to events like this. Extreme cold disproportionately affects vulnerable populations, including seniors, young children, and those without reliable access to heat. Checking in on neighbors, friends, and family members can be just as important as any official warning. Small actions can have a big impact when conditions are this severe. From a broader perspective, this outbreak highlights how quickly winter conditions can escalate from routine to dangerous. What begins as just cold can become life-threatening when wind, duration, and geography align. This is why messaging around these warnings is so strong, not to alarm, but to inform and protect. As we move toward the latter part of the week, forecast models do suggest a slow trend toward moderation across many regions. Temperatures will gradually climb and wind chill values will ease. However, moderation does not mean warmth. It means conditions becoming more manageable with proper clothing and precautions. Winter will remain firmly in control. Until that improvement arrives, the key message remains the same across all affected regions. Limit exposure, stay prepared, and take warnings seriously. Arctic outbreaks of this magnitude do not leave much margin for error, and respecting the conditions is essential. Before we close, let's recap the most important points. A widespread Arctic outbreak is affecting 6 major regions across Canada, with extreme cold warnings in place and wind chill values capable of causing frostbite within minutes. Some areas may begin to see gradual improvement soon, while others, particularly Western Labrador, will remain under dangerous conditions for longer. Preparation, caution, and awareness are critical as this situation continues. This remains an evolving situation, and updates will continue as conditions change and warnings are adjusted. Staying informed is one of the most effective ways to reduce risk during extreme weather events like this. If this update helped you understand what's happening and how it may affect you or your family, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss future weather alerts. Turn on notifications to stay ahead of rapidly changing conditions, and share this information with anyone who may be impacted. Stay safe, stay warm, and take care of each other as this extreme cold event continues.